I am super excited to have my dear friend Philip Meyer join us today for a Max 9 overview. It seems that it's about time that we did a bit of a drive-by. Max 9 has been out for seven months or so. Uh,
Really?
yeah, November. I know, Philip. Time waits for nobody.
Wow.
I know, right? I feel like I'm only just getting started with it. But yeah, it's got to be seven months, maybe a little more. So yeah, Max Nine's been out a minute. We thought it was probably about time to get one of our favorite folks along to just have a gander, have a walk through and see what some of the favorite things of Max Nine that Philip has discovered. For those who don't know, Philip Meyer is based in Los Angeles. He's an educator, an artist, musician, and that's just on a Monday. This guy does a lot. If you haven't seen Philip's YouTube channel, check out Philip Meyer on YouTube. Philip does some incredible YouTube tutorials on Macs, completely demystifying it. He's very generous. He's also in the Discord here pretty regularly, answering questions, providing assistance. Definitely recommend reaching out to Philip. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I kick it over to Philip. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. I will keep tabs on the questions. I may interrupt Philip or I may not, depending on the context of the question, but ultimately I'll keep tabs on the questions and we'll get to all of them at the end of the stream. So don't worry, we'll get to your questions. And at the end, feel free to, go nuts on a little Q&A, and we can look at the questions and hopefully get you guys some answers. So it's Max 9. Nothing is not on the table. So, yeah. Philip, welcome to Discord Office Hours. I always love having you here.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everybody. All right, so so I actually got into Max 9 slightly later than everybody else because I was making all this Ableton stuff, and I needed to stay on Max 8 to do that. So I've been working to catch up. For me, Max 9 is like, I think, and I'll show some stuff, but I would say for me, there's kind of like it improves the experience of patching for experienced Max programmers and for inexperienced ones in ways that I think are pretty cool. So we have one category that to me is like um, making complete effects in the audio and the video domain directly available to us as Max patchers, right? There's that kind of like meme that's like, oh yeah, you can make stuff in Max as long as you're prepared to make your own EQ. But now that's not a meme anymore because ABL has really brought it to the point where we have a lot of the basic kind of DSP building blocks that we would have in any DAW in Max. And then on the jitter side, I think it's a similar thing where these JIT FX modules now allow us to do pretty sophisticated things in textures, right, in the GPU, without having to crack open a GGL Pix. I still love cracking open a GGL Pix or a Gen on the audio side, but I just think that there's so much there as far as particularly like, well, two things. One is as a person who uses Max, being able to kind of focus your energy on one component of your patch and then just have the other stuff taken care of. And then the second part is getting newer Max programmers in and giving them super powerful and creative tools without them having to build that stuff themselves. So that's kind of the one big category. And then to me, the other one is like really improving the quality of life as a Max patcher. So that's the code box stuff. It's the OSC features, which I'm going to talk about a bunch here. The REPL, I'm super curious about. I haven't worked that into my process yet, but I think I will, and I see it along the same lines as making it easier for us to interact with our patches, to build the patches, maintain them, and just, you know, do everything that we'd been able to do before, but with a lot less friction. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of doors that these features open up that are kind of, in a funny way, they open up a lot more requests for Joshua and the engineering team, particularly I think in the OSC category of like, wow, that really cracks open a new world of possibilities that that now just need to be fulfilled. So let me stop talking and actually share my screen. And I should do that in Zoom, right, Tom? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, here we are in the stream. Okay. So I have this is basically like a simplified version of a performance patch that I built for a show where I had the rare privilege of opening for Mr. Tom Hall, who came out, by the way, with... Did you share the video of this?
No. You had to be there.
But you did take a video.
Oh yeah, there's the video.
Can I talk about it?
Yeah, Philip, it's you got the stage, man. Whatever you want.
This is like an event. It's like a noise. It's like freaks doing noise event. Like most people have like a pedal board, and they're doing like no input mixer stuff and just creating like loud abrasive sounds
with 10 Roland Metal Zone pedals chained together.
Yeah, exactly. And like a solid number of the people had no clothes on during their performance. It's really great. And so Tom brought his own like Cadillac of noise tables with like LED light strips around it. And then is that like a DMX thing where you're then able to control the lights? So he just like destroyed everyone with this spectacular show of light and sound. So that was awesome. But anyway,
it's an institute, the Handbag Factory. It's one of the longest running experimental music, venues in Los Angeles. For a city that has a lot of buildings and a lot of sprawl, it has an incredible amount of turnover of spaces and places to do anything besides mainstream music. And thankfully, the Handbag Factory in downtown LA has been a cornerstone of all things exploratory for nearly 15 years now. But yeah, Philip, that was great. It was fun to play on the same bill as you.
Yeah.
And I always love being amongst the noise kids as well. I love it.
They're great. Yeah, that was really fun. So I took that opportunity to explore some new Max 9 stuff. Particularly this, I'll just go kind of do an overview here. So the idea behind this particular patch was basically it's a sequencer. As many of you know, I make a lot of those. And I had this idea, which was like, I want to be able to, in a performance context, control the sequencer by feeding it lists of numbers, because that's kind of the fuel that drives any sequencer, is just lists of numbers. And I want to be able to kind of have these cues that I can like add numbers to easily by pressing buttons. And in the performance, I use like a Novation Launchpad grid controller, but here I'm actually using a computer keyboard interface, which I'll show you in a second. And so that's basically fed into some of the parameters of the sequencer. In this case, the subdivision, which sample's playing, and then some audio effects that are using those ABL devices. Where I have any kind of continuous parameter, like anything that would be represented by a dial, I took advantage of the OSC along with the call.code box here to create a mapping between my MIDI controller and the Max patch. And I did a YouTube video on this recently, so if you want to hear all about this in detail, you can go watch that. But I think that this is really exciting, where we can sort of think of the OSC implementation as being kind of an API for the patch, so that from anywhere outside of Max, we can really easily talk to the parameters of our patch. And if you're whatever that control interface is, whether that's some other software like Touch Designer or an iPad or whatever, if that thing speaks OSC, then it's really easy because you can just send OSC straight into Max. But in the case where we have a MIDI controller, we need some kind of utility that basically sits at the MIDI input and output and kind of maps, translates between MIDI and OSC. So I worked on a little tool for myself that does that. And I found it to be really nice to be able to have the mapping just sitting here in the patch, so that as I'm building the patch, I can really quickly map the encoders on my EC4 here to the parameters of my Max patch. Similarly, when it comes to this Q interface that we have, I have also used a call.codebox to be able to set up the keyboard mapping. So these numbers here are the like ASCII codes for the various keys on my keyboard, and you can see the viewer here. And then the command that those keys trigger. So if I bring in some audio, can you all hear that?
Yeah.
Cool. So on the one, I have, of course, the MIDI controller, right? And these 4 top dials basically just control parameters of the Q interface. In particular, the like number of items in the queue to loop. So if I take the first knob, which is mapped to the subdiv loop here, and I increase this, we're looping over more of the queue. And basically this kind of rhythmic variation that is derived from these different integers defining different subdivision values becomes a longer list. I can then use the keyboard if I want to add new values to the queue and sort of advance along the sequence. So if you look at the keyboard viewer here, I'm going to target the first queue by pressing the A key. And then on my right hand, I can actually add those values. So if I wanted to add a bunch of ones in.
Philip, let's turn the volume of the Max patch down slightly. Yeah.
I can add a bunch of ones in, so now I have a constant subdivision, but I can also vary that some more as well.
Nice.
And I can do the same with the sample that plays with the second cue, so I can target the second one by pressing S, and now anything that I press with my right hand is going to be appending new values to the second cue. I can basically the timbral sequence, I guess you could say.
Very cool.
Yeah, so this I'm really excited about. There's a lot more work to do here. I'm actually working on a package that kind of encapsulates this queue capability as a module that then you hopefully easily used in any patch. So that's something I'm working on. I'm hoping to get out whenever the kinks are worked out. But I'm finding this to be quite exciting, just in the sense of developing a sort of fluid relationship between the performer and the computer, and not in many cases also not requiring a lot of extra hardware to do that, right? Like I'm really excited about the idea that actually the computer keyboard, kind of like if you're somebody who uses Vim as a programmer, can be an excellent interface for a computer-based performance instrument. So, and Tom, feel free to stop me if there are any questions. Got some stuff out here, Narnia. Okay. I'm gonna go floating off here. So the patch is pretty simple. The sequencer is really simple. It's just a phaser and then basically a subdiv that I wrote in Gen. And the reason it's in Gen is just because I have a Gen abstraction, this PDM queue.reader, that's actually reading from the queue, because the queue sits in a buffer. And when I use my keyboard, basically the key listener sits in here, and then we just basically send messages into this pdmq.cues object, which now is saying, write the value of 0 to queue number 1. So that's the sequencer. We then have an mc.midi player. We're doing a similar thing here. We have this kind of MSP version of the reader that's reading from the second queue and is sending different MIDI note values, because I have my drum kit is in an SFIZ, which was, what was SFIZ? Like at max 8.6, something like that, 8.5. Also a great object to be able to get a quick, like, really performant polyphonic sampler. And then I have a whole chain of Ableton effects. And again, I'm using these sort of cues, a combination of cues and also continuous parameters to be able to control the parameters or the dry wet or the mix of these audio effects.
Very cool.
So that's basically this patch. I can go into some more of the details of where Max 9 is used within this cue library as well. But I guess I'll pause to take any questions or feedback.
Any questions for Philip, folks, while we're at this point? I think we can see clearly from Philip's patch that the ABL objects are quite popular. And I must say personally myself too, it's kind of nice to be able to be in a creative space and be like, I want a reverb, I want a compressor, I want a mid-side, and to kind of just type that into a Max object and it's basically there. What is the subdiv underscore loop subdiv code box?
Oh yeah, so the cue library has this idea that we're adding numbers to a list, and by default the as we read back the numbers in the list, we'll just consume each one, and then when we get to the last one, we'll just play that last one over and over again. So if I decrease this subdiv loop parameter to 1, you can see it's going to get to the end right here at the top, and it's just on 0. So you can think of it as just looping the last item in the queue. But I had discovered as I was starting to experiment with this that there'd be cases where I'd be performing the thing and I'd get a sequence that I liked, and then I would go, oh, I want actually those last 5 items or whatever to be looped. So by increasing the loop, I can loop over those last 5 items, which in this case are all zeros, but I can quickly change that by just adding some different values into the queue. Over here in the call.code box, this is basically how I'm making it possible for me to control with my MIDI controller using control change number 1, the subdiv loop parameter of the Max patch. So I don't have to use my mouse really when I'm performing with this. I'm really just using a combination of the MIDI controller and my computer keyboard to perform. And I've also used a grid file controller like a Launchpad or I guess a Monome to handle that interaction with the queue. So the appending values to the queue there could be many interfaces for that. The one that I'm using today is this kind of keyboard interface. Computer keyboard interface, that is. Does that answer the question?
I think so.
Cool.
Philip, what's your favorite thing about the ABL objects?
Yeah, just that you can get DSP stuff that's complete and does everything you need it to do quickly.
Yeah, I'm a fan. The reverbs I love the reverbs. The hybrid reverb algorithms are great. It's probably what I use the most. Yeah.
Because we actually had a Max CT call earlier today with all the CTs just getting to know each other. We have some new ones. Shout out to Ashlyn and John. And a lot of those folks are university professors, and so there's this question of how do we get our students to be interested in Max, because a lot of them are kind of required to learn it, and it's always like, how do we draw people further in? Really think like ABL really helps with that. I also think like you see it already on YouTube. There's a whole world of people that are doing really crazy stuff with Ableton racks. And you see them doing crazy stuff with modulation where they're really trying to use the admittedly bolted on modulation implementation in live, right? Where it's like you have to like put the modulator in a track and then like map it back over, and it all feels kind of brittle, and like there's no real place for modulation to go. Max, I think, gives you a lot power when it comes to that sort of stuff of building really complex DSP chains where there's like forking paths or maybe side chains or like lots of modulation. So I'm interested to see kind of over the next year or whatever, like whether those folks that are doing sound design stuff with Ableton devices in live start to adopt a Max for that purpose. And you could start to imagine kind of like Max for live devices that are basically just recreations of racks that are much easier to use
Right.
as a performance instrument or as an instrument. I think the other thing is like until you've been doing this for so long that like you have your own personal synth package and you're like, all of these components built out for yourself, you kind of need some of these components so that you have the ability to focus in the areas where you really are interested in.
Right.
That's this rhythmic stuff. So a lot of the time I'm kind of putting the sound generation like in as small of a box as I can put it, because I don't want to have to spend much time and spread myself too thin there. So I think that's also a really important part of why ABL is so valuable. And the same is true for the JIT.fx. I did a visual thing, which I also made a video about recently, if you want to watch that, for a friend, where the kind of core of it was this like texture delay that I had worked on based upon some patches that have been kind of floating around on the internet from, I don't know if it was Rob or Benson or somebody. And that took a lot of work to kind of figure out how to really get it working the way that I wanted to. And then on top of that, I found myself wanting a whole bunch of other smaller things like a Gaussian blur or a kind of like smeary filter or like a submatrix, right? The ability to just like take away a bunch of the frame, because we were processing a video camera and we only needed some of it. So like those JIT.fx really made it possible for me to do that performance in the way that I wanted to. Right. And just like the algorithm that I was most excited about and felt like it was kind of the special sauce of my particular patch was something I could do well. And then I had all the rest taken care of. And the result of that was that I ended up getting a lot more out of that patch than I expected to, because you had this kind of chain of video effects, I guess you could think of it, in series, and the interactions between those video effects actually ended up yielding interesting and surprising results that I would not have gotten. And I know that jitter stuff was already there. Like those, for the most part, those were already shaders that you could have used with JIT-GL Slab, but just instantiating them as an object and making them really easy to use and configure makes a huge difference. Sticking them over here in this this menu, which I think has been redone.
Yeah, I got some upgrades in Max 9.
This is really great.
Nice to have things like recent. I'm such a fan of recent.
Yeah, recent.
All the stuff I've grabbed recently in audio files. Recent. The only thing in recent is Jongli for me, but
audio files, recent, Cherokee. That's my go. That's my go-to.
Recent is great though. I literally I think I save probably hours a year now not trying to find Zhongli. um but
Maybe
yeah,
for FF. Yeah.
JIT FX is great, and I think what Philip's describing here is there's a lot of not necessarily new, but new in terms of like how they're accessible, uh,
Yeah.
quality of life improvements. Literally, there's several of them for me personally that will be saving me hours, if not days, per year, in less clicks. Um, yeah, it's pretty incredible. Uh, the menus are great. I love the updated menus. The JIT FX, I think it's worth mentioning that while you mentioned that they were available as slabs in the past, several of the JIT FX were rewritten for efficiency in JIT GeoPix. So whilst the functionality is the same, they're actually much more efficient and generally more usable in the jitter environment.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
and
understand.
I like your point too, Philip. Like, we don't always need to be writing reverbs from scratch or other things. We're in Max. We're kind of in Max because we like building the wheel, but we don't need to build every part of the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah. I agree strongly with that. Um and yeah, I think inviting other people that could fall in love with Max is crucial. And I think that this helps to do that. I taught this class over the winter, and they're like, the students were all kind of visual arts people doing, they're like a media art program. So a lot of them are doing touch designer and stuff like that. And I was teaching them Ableton. We didn't get into Max in the course, unfortunately. But I was teaching them Ableton, and I was explaining how a mixing desk works. So I was like, okay, you got these things called pre-fader and post-fader sends. And they were like, why isn't that just a thing? And I was like, well, because there's this thing called an analog mixing desk, and live looks like that because that's what people who know about music technology expect, you know. Um, so I think there's a out there to have powerful kind of node-based tools that are really accessible and really creative. So I think AVL really puts us a big step in that direction.
Amazing.
One thing I was going to add also is I understand that these use the define feature, right?
Yeah.
So that I was super excited about when I learned about, because I was able to use it. So this here is a JS UI, but if I go into the inspector, oh, actually it still says V8 UI, but basically I can make it so that this V8 UI can be created like it's a Max object. So I could say this is called pdmq.view, and it's actually creating this JS UI or V8 UI, and then I can.
That's awesome.
So that's cool. It's
Yep.
another one of those things where it's like not having to remember as much information, and then you can. I know that in some cases, maybe not in the V8 UI case, but you can even have it so that this will then open the help patch if you were to right click it.
Right.
Which I have. Let me go find it. pdmq.view. And so you can sort of make packages for either yourself or others that are really available to you. And I think that kind of gets into the other thing we're talking about here, which is like, it's great that we have all this stuff that makes Max super accessible, but one of the awesome things about Max is that you can, over the course of your like entire lifetime, build a library of patches that belong to you and that are part of your practice. And like, it kind of dawned on me, I don't know when it was recently, someone was asking me to pitch to them why they should learn Max, and it occurred to me that there is really very little software out there aside from like writing C++ where you get to write like make something and then you can use it 30 years later and it still works.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
that does not happen anywhere. I worked on a patch from 2000 that someone sent me and asked me to kind of overhaul, that I will make a video about when I am allowed to, that like luckily didn't have any MXJ in it, and like was a fully functioning Max patch in Max 9, you know, which
Yeah.
is just so cool. And I like that that's really valuable. And then that's where it starts to become exciting, this idea of actually getting really good at making packages. Because if you're good at making packages, then you actually are able to create like repositories of patches that are super reusable by you and others.
Yep. I completely agree with this. I mean, learning to build your own abstractions, your own packages, and we learn Max, so we have accumulative knowledge, but then we have accumulative tools, and
Right.
ultimately this leads us to being better artists.
Yes.
Because we spend less time in the weeds making the wheel and instead creating output. It's very key to I think the Max ecosystem, and probably something we could spend more time showing is how to implement this. It's not the most exciting journey, how to make abstractions, how to access your own, build your own library, but what you've just described, Philip, is the antithesis of many Max users' practice, and is those that build systems that can last decades. And there's not too many other things in the music industry that I can think of that are able to span that distance. And one thing, funnily enough, is just sample packs. So you could take an old breakcore sample pack from a CD in 1998 and throw it into your Digitac 2 Electron sampler in 2025, and it'll work and sound exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's one of the few things. But like your VST presets that are like in some weird ass
Nope.
format that like I'm in love with that synth Razor from, it's like a Native Instruments like additive synth. And I just love the sound it makes, but like eventually it's going to die and I'm going to lose all the presets that I made, and that's going to be a sad day for me.
The only way is to run an old machine and just don't change it.
Yeah, which is cool, but I also want everything to be in my computer. Personally.
Yeah, I got a few old power books and stuff that I like and have old stuff running on them, but like I will say as a workflow, I have to be in a particular mood to want to like restart it, because the process of working on an old machine, you're so used to how fast everything is, and you've just got to slow down back to PowerBook years or whatever.
Looks like, yeah, they basically use an old computer like it's a rack mount effects unit. So the computer is just like outboard gear for them, but yeah,
Totally. Philip, show everyone the Param Connect feature. You pulled a JIT-FX in, and also it's available via the on the ABL objects too. But for me, this is like, for lack of a better term, a game changer.
Okay, so I'll in fact, all right, here, let's see, does this no, I don't have a param here.
So this works for anything that has parameters, but also things like the new ABL objects are exposed to this. JIT, or PIX.
Yeah.
The JIT
So
FX, any of the shader stuff. Yes, Param Connect works with ABO and gen objects, providing you have defined parameters in the gen. You're off. So this is
yes,
huge. All you need to do is make a UI object and then connect it,
you're good to
and
go.
you don't need any patch cords.
So let me pull up an outer UI so that we can see this, but we don't require the outer UI, but we can just see then. So I've connected this live.dial to the spectral time, the sensitivity parameter, and now that's connected. And this also has an OSC address. So if I wanted to talk to this, I could say param.osc, and then I can do slash sensitivity $1, and I can control it that way too. So if you have, like a secondary UI somewhere else in your patch, like I find a lot of times I'll have like the insane every parameter UI, but then like there's the one that I'm actually in a performance that's compact. The ability to have multiple UI objects that control the same parameter, I find to be really powerful, and that can be bidirectional. So I can say route sensitivity, and
You've just blown Ned Rush's mind. He's like, what?
I and now oh wait. Auto at auto1. So this sets up param.osc to automatically listen to all of the parameters in your patch. So this, Tom, is an area where there's some refinement that needs to happen because we need to convert this full packet into a list. And for this, I
Yeah.
use package. I don't think we have a native object for it yet. I know that this is something that has
Yeah,
been
I
written.
need to talk to John. Luckily for you, you know some folks at Cycling 74 Philip, so you know.
Yeah, and actually have already submitted this and it's been acknowledged as a thing. So, yeah, I mean, so this I think can get a little bit tighter, but just as a basic, I mean, even this is so nice and really doesn't require a whole lot in terms of patch cords.
Yeah,
I've
it's
always,
huge. It's huge. The nature of the OSC everywhere feature is that uh, whilst it was fully implemented for Max 9, it's until it gets larger use where we're like, oh, because it's just so vast, trying to cover every user possibilities, until people get there.
right. Here's the hack. You just use the UDP receive. Yeah, there's so much here, and I think I kind of like that it came out in a like it's a bit of a paradigm shift actually, I think. Um, where we can really think about a max patch having parameters, which they already did, but like in my mind that was always a max for live thing.
Right.
But now it's a standalone max thing. I'm curious about the idea of presets, which I know snapshots is a way to do presets with parameters, so that's something I want to explore a little bit. But I think there's some really cool possibilities there around, creating queues, CUE queues, where you can basically recall the whole state of a patch very quickly because OSC is really very similar to a dictionary, and you can actually convert OSC into a dictionary with this same ODOT library. So if I send the all params message to param.osc, and I'm going to use the OSC code box to show what comes out of it. So this is every parameter that I have in my patch. Sorry, I know I'm like way down here in the corner. Let me do this thing. There we go. Now I'm too close.
Yeah, that's huge.
I can then turn this into a dictionary with this o.dict. So this is not a Max like object. This is from the o dot library. But then if I have a dict.code box, then this is now a dictionary. And from here, it's not a big leap to imagine saving an array of these dictionaries that basically represent presets and then being able to quickly recall those. So kind of replicating a lot of what it's doing, but staying within the parameter space that I think is cool. So this is one of my other requests was let's get o.atomize, which is turns the kind of OSC full packet thing into just list, and then o.dict, which turns the OSC into a dictionary. So we don't have to have external packages.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then like I also feel like there's a relationship here where like going back to this define thing where you can even like I noticed the other day that like so a lot of times I create a live.scope range -0.1 to 1.1 because I want to use it to visualize a phaser, whereas live.scope by default on the range of -1 to 1. So if I have a phaser here, phaser 1, oops. If I created just a blank live.scope, there'd be this wasted space because the range of this is -1 to 1. But I discovered that if you use the define thing, and you could say max define phaser scope live.scope at range -0.1, 1.1, and then you send that message to max. If I now create a phaser scope, then that's already there. So if you're a person who like does a lot, I could even see this being super valuable if you have like one of those JIT FX objects that has like 18 parameters configured. Really cool way to instantiate that complex thing very quickly and easily.
Yeah. I'm old school. I just write live.scope at range 0.1 and then enter.
The problem I have is I'm making videos and I'm trying not to have people spend too much time watching me type at range -0.1 to 1.1. So for that, I'm very excited about.
No, the define feature is cool. I think you've showed. I'm just admitting that I have old habits that I need to let die, because this is the way to go. It's like being able to customize Max to your, because honestly, realistically, I probably use a scope more in the 0 to 1 range than its default.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And you can basically make it so that this happens by default with a package. So if I go to my...
Well, Marcelo has a good question here, and I'm not entirely sure on this. I should know the answer to this, but I don't. Is it just defined for the patch, or is it globally?
This is what I'll show you. This is super duper cool. So
All right, here we
go back to my file browser, I have my package here, which is for this queue thing. And if you create in the init folder a text file that has that message, this is going to get executed when Max loads. And I assume that this type of file is somewhere way deep in the resources folder inside of the Max application. But if you wanted to have your own, then this is how you would do that. Right. You just have a package. And I think it's always a good idea as a sort of general practice as a Max programmer to just have your own package. So this is kind of my like catch-all one that I use for everything, and then I have all of these other ones that are sort of more specific, and over time, as things become more clearly defined, they kind of move out of this catch-all one into the more specific ones. So I think if you have a place where sort of your like abstractions that you use all of the time, I think it's a really good idea to, rather than having those live in your library, put them in a package. And then inside the package, you can also have things like this initialization file that allows you to define your kind of custom object aliases, I guess you could say.
Yeah, Philip, can you just show again the message there? Ziki is asking in the chat that define message actually, folks, is just a message to max, which you do with a semicolon space max and then whatever message you want to send to max. Yeah.
Right. This is a way to talk to max itself. We can also, I mean, it's an extension of the send and receive function.
Yep.
So if I have receive foo and I connect a message box to that, and then I say semicolon foo hello, and then I click that, then I've sent that message to hello. So this can be useful in cases where you need dynamic sends and receives, but most often when we see the semicolon, we see it sending the message to max, which is also means that you really shouldn't do this. That's not a good idea. Oh, it won't even allow it. That's good. But anyway, yeah, so we send the message to max. We're telling it that we're going to call this define method or whatever. This is the name that we're of the object, that the quote unquote object that we're defining. And then all of the rest of this is the thing that's an alias of. And you could have, a long configuration here, like a whole like elaborate jit.world setup you could have here.
Yeah, and folks are understanding that this is possible now to also do with the REPL, where you can talk to Max, send stuff, etc.
Yeah. So max define hello. I don't know. Comment. Can I insert the text into comment with an argument? No, right? No.
That would be a set message.
Yeah. Oh,
Possibly.
But I could. Okay, so let's try it. So if I have a comment, this is a bit of a different thing, but now we're demonstrating the REPL. I'm going to go to a new patch. So we have a comment. If we give this a scripting name, my comment, and then we open the REPL, which, is there a keyboard shortcut to get into this REPL? Because I feel like there should be.
I'm not entirely sure on that.
My comment set hello. No. I'll have to. Do you know how to do that? I know you can address a. Is it? Oh, maybe it's like this. My comment set hello. No. We'll have to figure that one out. REPL.
Philip, I haven't spent a ton of time with the REPL.
So I think this is cool. I haven't really used it either.
Yeah.
To me, it's like another thing where, like, as a performance interface, it could be very cool. Because I know that one thing you can do is say, like, I have a receive that's like REPL receive, right? Or like, let's actually make it much shorter. We'll call it RR. And so now I can just have like a place that stuff gets sent to. That's accessible down here. My one request would be, I want to be able to get into that box and get out of it without having to go to my mouse.
Right.
Because the whole point of it is that it's a keyboard interface.
Yeah, this REPL dock is actually a good spot to start, folks. There's a lot of pretty cool. I also posted the user guide in the chat, Philip.
Oh, just the docs. Yeah. Oh, the guide. Yeah,
which
I
is
understand.
different. Yeah, it's on the web.
Cool.
I was actually looking to see if there's a shortcut to get into the REPL, but I can't find it.
I asked in Discord, but I didn't didn't get anything. So consider that.
Looks like Josh has something here. There's no Arthur. Thanks, Arthur. There's no shortcut. I don't know. Oh no! If you open console, Command M.
I tried that. It just opens it. It doesn't put your cursor.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. Nice.
I've also as like a scratch pad. If I have to do some quick math, like I need a calculator.
All right.
8 plus 16. That's kind of nice because you're executing JavaScript.
Yep. There you go, folks. It's also a calculator.
Sticker tape style calculator.
Can't go wrong. Okay, Philip, this is awesome. Folks, feel free while we're cruising through, just drop your questions in the chat. I'll take note and ask the question at the appropriate time, or maybe I can even answer it for you, or Philip can. Philip, what else have you been diving into in Max 9? What else is like getting you excited?
Kind of a small thing, but this declare attribute thing I think is super cool. The way that that's been improved inside of JS. So if I open this this V8 UI, and it goes along with the define, so I can kind of define parameters of my V8 UI by, you have to use var, so you declare the variable with var, not with let, and then you use this declare attribute, give the name of the same name, and then this object allows you to set the parameters of that particular attribute. And once this is done, then you can set the value of this attribute with at arguments in your object box. You can send messages to Max that set the value of this. You can pull up an outer UI. So I think it also would appear in the inspector. I always find myself wanting basically everything that I make in Max to work like a Max object. Like I want attributes, I want left to right ordering for the outlets. I want like to be able to send different messages into the first inlet. Like say it's a signal processing object, I want it to take a signal, but I also want to be able to send a signal into that object. So to me, this is one of these things where it allows us to just make better better components in JS or like in V8 particularly, or V8 UI, and really have them behave like Max objects. So that to me has been a small thing, but just really powerful. And then also, yeah, I've been doing some visual stuff as well. That's kind of the other big thing I've been diving into in Max 9.
On the visual side, you mentioned JitFX. Have you been playing around with the JitGeom stuff at all, or?
I haven't. I'm more of a 2D for the most part.
Fair enough.
Okay.
The world is 3D enough for Philip.
Yeah, I think my my limited skills are generally speaking my limited skills. With my limited skills, I get better results in the 2D domain. I like to do a lot of stuff where I'll be processing some video or like combining images or video. So I do a lot of JitGL picks.
We've got a question here. You've definitely answered this in the previous office hours that we had you here, but question is, what is your background? More music orientated or more coding orientated? Bit of both. How did you come to start using Max? I will say Philip has gone into this at length in the past, so check out the other office hours. But Philip, let's give the abbreviated answer.
Answer is I did radio DJing in college, like in my like mid 20s when I bought a drum machine. I don't have a lot of like traditional musician background, but I also don't have a programming background. I studied Russian in college, and when I after I left college, I was working in a software company doing kind of non-technical things that slowly became more and more technical and just became more and more curious. And I watched Matt Wright's Max 7 Intro to Max 7 course, and that kind of was when the bug bit me. And just through sheer curiosity and obsession, I've gone further and further with Max.
Was that the cadenza one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still think to me that's still the best one. But man, we need a new one.
We need
that
a,
has-
oh no. Max 9, Max 9 coming out pretty much put a lot of age on that course pretty quickly. Unfortunately. It is a great course. But it's shit. That's coming up to 10 years old now. That's crazy.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I know
think that's Max 7.
folks.
Wow.
I know we're teaching Intro to Max classes, so record it.
Now I feel old.
I'll do it. I'm down. I just need the time.
This is every Max programmer's dilemma, Philip. I always get asked, like, if there was one piece of gear that you could get, what would it be? And I'm like, if I could go down to Guitar Center and buy like an allotment of free time, like, that's what I would buy, not any gear.
Yeah. Or I want like a powerful version of that Apple Face computer so that I can just do my patching in the air, so I don't
Yeah.
have to wrap around my computer anymore.
Right. Can get rid of the hunchback and just be in a more ergonomically supportive environment and just like patch with your mind.
Go for a long walk, go for a long hike, and just like patch. Talk to the computer
Yeah.
and have all your patching through like a voice interface. That's kind of my dream gear right there.
Marcel has a question here, and I might have the answer. But I'll ask you first, Philip. Have you ever used an ESP32 or any other type of microcontroller to be able to send sequences into the world?
A little bit, but not very much. Definitely of interest.
My new favorite is the Arduino Nano 33 IoT. It's incredible.
How
It's-
do you use
It's not
that?
a direct replacement for an ESP32, but it's pretty similar. It has Wi-Fi built in. It's basically an Arduino, so you can program it with the Arduino IDE. It's got the beauty and why I love it so much. It's got a decent Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in. It's the size of a matchbox. It's tiny, and it also has a gyro and accelerometer built in. Yeah. So it's pretty easy to get some OSC going to and from it. And yeah.
Rainbow?
Yeah.
Rain-
I'm using it. Actually, I am using it myself. I'm using it for a few things. I basically built the glove to conquer all gloves, aka the Imogen hip,
yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm using it to drive some solenoids. So I must admit, someone was like, couldn't you just drive the solenoids from the Raspberry Pi from Rainbow directly? And the answer is yes. But the reason I built it The way I did was so that I could plug in an external MIDI directly to it and bypass, the Raspberry Pi. But the 33 IoT is pretty incredible, actually. And I was working with the ESP32 for a while, but it's a bit long in the tooth now. The 33 IoT is a little more updated for current networks and the likes.
That's cool.
Worth checking out.
Yeah.
Uh,
It would be great if we could run Rainbow directly on those. I guess you can, right? Because it's you can export to C++ target and.
yeah, and we're doing some bare metal stuff too. So it's I haven't explored it yet personally, I must admit, but it's probably possible. Maybe you can run it on the ESP32 as well. So. Yeah, Marcella, I started with an ESP32 and it was giving me trouble with that, combined with the fact that I had to then connect basic sensors like accelerometer and gyro when the 33 IoT Arduino already had it built in for the same price. Made sense. It's a fun world, and it's funny, Rainbow Max 9 has opened up a whole range of possibilities there and the OSC everywhere that's in Max 9 means that joining all these things, like, I must admit, there's probably a couple of years that went by there where I didn't touch an Arduino, and now I'm like, oh, there's a whole new set of possibilities here. And the Arduino IDE is so much, it's timeless and it just works. It's pretty easy to get going inside of it. Exciting. Yeah. Have you been doing any Rainbow, Philip?
Not late. Well, actually, I did one kind of client project in there recently, but not a ton.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it'll be like a VST target, so no cool hardware stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's like I feel like if I added up the real world projects out there right now with Rainbow, I think plugin's probably the winner at the moment. But I'm seeing some pretty cool hardware stuff come up, and actually, Jelani is here just now, who's doing some cool hardware stuff with Rainbow as well. Shout out.
Yeah, it seems like there's a whole subset of folks that are really invested in Rainbow. It seems like, and there's a lot of stuff happening on the cycling side in terms of extending Rainbow.
Yeah. There is a lot. It's exciting. I feel like we're getting towards that 1.1 Rainbow 1.5 milestone, and it's maturing quite nicely. The possibilities have opened up significantly as far as targets, bare metal support, so on and so forth. It's the next year of Rainbow is going to be quite exciting, I think. Yeah, and Philip, you were the first person to do. I don't know if folks know that you can roll your own Max externals using Rainbow. Philip was actually the first to create a Max project from Rainbow package. The RTT tools.
Yeah. Yeah, again, packages. In fact, yeah, packages. I think packages are the best. And yeah, that's a cool capability. I just think it's good to like have to go so far in developing an abstraction that you would be willing to compile it as an object and write a reference doc and make a help patch and like do all of those things. Because I just think it forces you to think really hard about how to make it good.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like finishing a track or an album or whatever, right? Like, the the thing with the max patch is like it's never really done, and there's probably a ton of folks here in the chat that have been 3 minutes before the performance and they're making some change to their patch. But something about rolling it into an object is like some level of finalization. Of course you can refine it and rebuild it, but yeah, it's like hitting export in the DAW.
Yeah. I was just gonna say I've been on the tip of like if it's worthy of other people, then it's at the level that I would like it to be at.
Right.
So kind of am now in the place where it's like if I'm gonna make something, not necessarily like a project that's like for a given performance or something, but if I'm gonna make an abstraction and it's something that I think I'm gonna reuse, like my objective is to get that to the place where it is something that I can put on GitHub and feel like someone can use it by reading the documentation and they're not gonna break on them.
They're not gonna send you nasty emails.
Yeah, and I like Timo. I think who was on what two sessions ago or something.
Yeah.
Is so good at that. So I take a lot of inspiration from Timo, just in terms of being able to take a kind of body of ideas, a concept, build a package around that, and build a nice, really tight family of objects that work really well together as a kind of ecosystem. He's just great at that.
Yeah, Timo's been at it a while. I mean, I think he's just it's part of his DNA is just sharing, and I imagine he's refined the process a lot over the years. Aaron Levitz is here. He's asking, do the rainbow-based objects work on Push 3 standalone? And that is a currently a no. Currently a no, but it's certainly something that's being requested a lot, and we're taking a look at it. Push 3 standalone has a slightly different architecture in terms of how it operates, so it's not a straight one for one from a PC. Yes. Folks, any other questions while we've got Philip here? We're a bit past the hour. We might wrap it up here shortly. If there's any other questions, drop them in the chat right now. Philip, what are you excited about right now? What's on the near future checklist agenda? Gigs, anything coming up?
Keep figuring this Q thing out. I feel like I'm just getting that to a place where I can share that. And get through this horrible time that is happening in the city that I live in. Have some brain space to be able to use some of these things more creatively, because I actually personally find it making one of the hardest things. I find it a lot easier to like tinker with packages and patches and do tutorials and all that kind of stuff. Music, I really feel like I need more space. So that's one thing excited for is getting some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I hear you. Like the tools, making the tools, playing, tinkering away, doing 5-10 minutes here of max programming actually can be quite productive, right? You can sit down with a cup of coffee and knock something out that's useful, but then to actually record album and mix and all of that, you certainly need focus and clarity. And where is Philip based? Philip is based in Los Angeles. I'm sure you've seen the news recently, probably, possibly. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think patching is patching and like chopping it up in the Discord is easier than making music.
Someone says making packages is easier than being hit by police horses. This is true, folks. This is true.
Stay away from police horses is my the best bit of advice I can give this week.
Yeah. Right, folks. Unless there's any last minute questions here, I think we're going to wrap it up. Philip, thank you so much for your key insights here. I think if any of you have been along for the ride here, it's easy to ascertain that Max 9 did change a lot. It's probably for me personally on my own personal creative level. There's just so many quality of life improvements where I'm just like I can't go back to old versions anymore. Yeah, and that for me is just worth the price of admission. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for sticking around.
Of course, Philip. Seagull has a question. Do you have a story of your live coding patching experience?
Like how I became a patcher?
Maybe performing. Philip's really great. I like watching Philip perform. Philip's sets are great. I want more Philip Meyer live sets, and I definitely want an album. No pressure, Philip, but
I know I promised one on the last one, so I haven't forgotten about that.
at this point, you're banned from office hours until you come back with an album, all right? Banned. You're banned. I need an album.
Okay.
I'm joking, but also...
No, I want that. I need that. What I want is I want a monthly radio show where I have to perform for an hour with some random patch every month. That's what I really want.
You want that, or you have that?
I want it. I want to be forced to have to just like do a performance that no one is going to listen to because it's you
need a dub lab. I reckon you need a dub lab spot. Yeah. Trying to think what would be the best time for this. 3 p.m. on a Friday afternoon when everyone in LA is trying to get home to beat the traffic, but they're all at the same time stuck in traffic.
Sounds like great.
And it's 3 to 4 p.m.
on a Thursday, 5 o'clock on a Thursday in LA.
Oh, you just got invited to a gig on the Discord office hours. Ned Rush is here. You can do more kicks than friends. Honestly, Ned puts on like the best streaming event, and it's honestly the only streaming event that I even cared about in the pandemic. The rest of them just made me want to cry because I missed actual live shows. But Ned's one was funny, entertaining, and good sounding. Old mate Sean Booth from Autech has been known to turn up and hang out amongst others. Yeah, Philip, there you go. You've got a show. Boom. Talk to Ned. He'll get you hooked up.
So prolific. Makes a video like every day. It's amazing.
I know. I want some of Ned Rush's energy. I don't know how he does it, to be honest.
I don't either.
There's something in that water in the UK, I think. They operate differently over there. Yeah, More Kicks Than Friends is a blast. Super fun. Highly recommended. For folks who don't know it, Ned Rush has a YouTube channel in here. He's also a certified trainer. And he puts on an event called More Kicks Than Friends. Check it out. highly recommend it. And you're gonna go back and check out the past ones. They're very entertaining and good sounding, solid stuff. And Philip's gonna be playing soon.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that'll do for today. You've been gracious in hanging out with us. Tell your friends about Max 9. Get out there, dig into it. Be sure to hang out in the Discord in general. Max beginner questions. There's all the other threads, Rainbow. Discord's probably the best spot to hang out. You've got half the Cycling 74 engineers hanging around. You can just ask them questions directly. Kind of incredible, really, that you were able to do that. Philip's in here. Ned Rush is in here. I'm in here. You've got half the Max community or more hanging out in this place. It's the place to be. Would you say it's the place to be, Philip?
Oh, yeah. And I wanted to give a shout out to Alexander, who I feel like has really been holding down the question answering lately in a major way. So big shout out to Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not here right now. I don't know where he is. He's normally in here. He loves it. But Panos is a machine. He's I saw his little. Did you see his patch? He did the Neurobase patch. It's pretty fun.
Wicked.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a beauty. Let me see. I got the link here. Did folks see Alexander Panos's Neurobase? Damn. It's funny, like, I just wonder, like, I saw this guy be like, I'm inspired by Alexander Panos's Neurobase, and it's pretty cool. Hang on, I'll pull it up here. I got the link. Here it is. It was a collaborative or the commissioned project by Cycling 74. There's a couple others in there too, but Panos's Neurobase is off the chain. They're all actually quite good, these projects. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Seb's in there. This is great.
Yeah. And the beauty of those projects too is, like, firstly they're usable out of the gate. You can just turn up to EDC next year with Panos' Neurobase and play the main stage. But as you dig into these, if you crack them open, you'll find some pretty incredible pieces of code, all usable. Make it your own. These are learning opportunities too. So be sure to also go back and check out. There's a ton of these in the past as well. There's a bunch in there. Highly recommend checking them out. This collaborative drum kit is pretty good too.
That one's great.
Yep.
Neuro bass. Yeah, I'm excited. I've played with it a bit, but I need to spend some time. I mean, this is just such a good way to learn a whole domain of max patching that I don't know a single thing about. Like FFT stuff, I've just only barely done, and Panos is just a complete badass with that stuff.
Yeah, I think it just it's just one of those things where certain people gravitate towards certain areas of Max, right? And they hone in and they make that part of Max their domain. And Panos is someone that watched that demystifying FFT series 10 years ago or whatever, and just went deep in the FFT arena, and yeah, he shared some incredible stuff over the years too. Check out the Discord. If you go back through just type FFT into the general channel, and 90% of the results will be Alexander Panos. Yeah, good stuff. And I should say, you should check his albums out. He's not just a max patcher. This guy makes some incredible music. which is I think what we all strive for. Philip,
I have one last question. Has Airsats Ben been invited to do an office hours?
who?
Airsats Ben is like he has a YouTube and he does MC stuff.
Yeah. No, he hasn't. I mean, basically, I invite people. I invite people who, who are out and about that I see, right? So I see his YouTube, right? But I don't think, is he in the Discord much?
I think he has a day job as like a public health, like he's like a real professional and something else, and then also just ridiculously sick.
Max is his outlet. But yeah, you're totally right. No shade too on that he's. I'm just saying that it's like it's the people. It's the squeaky wheel that gets the oil, if it makes sense. Yeah. Not that you're a squeaky wheel, Philip, but But it's easy. It's just like, yeah, I should ask him. I have, it's insane. When I was starting this series, I polled the whole group with people. There's so many. I have a list. It's insane, and a lot of them are people I need to just get. But time just goes, and I'm like, I still have to have Robert Henke on here sometime. Like Robert's down.
That's gonna.
There's so many people I want to get in here still, but the time flies. It's like, yeah.
Or that robot. Did you see that on Adam Savage from MythBusters?
Yeah.
He's got a YouTube channel, and he had a guy on there that made this crazy 5-legged robot where the legs are also arms, because any one of the legs can flip backwards like a scorpion's tail, and then has a little grabber, and that thing is controlled.
I saw this. Yes.
Someone posted it. Quail's
here. Gotta have Quail on at some point. Yeah. It's not gonna be any Max. It's just gonna be like us cooking dinner.
I would like for the Quail one to just be a detailed breakdown of the overlap ad. Whatever that is.
Yeah. We got to get him in for something. Yeah. It'll be hot dogs all round. Just hot dogs. All right, folks, that's enough. We'll see you back here. We're going to have a short break. I'm going to have a little bit of a vacation. And we'll be back with a whole slew of office hours very soon. And otherwise, we'll see you out there in the general channel and the other channels. Philip, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Stick around a second. All right, folks. Be well. See you out there.
Bye, everybody.